Introduction. I'm a fan of the first two parts of Outlast, these are daring and revolutionary games that showed how cinematic and exciting horror can be. Instead of crawling and roll time like the SCP and the cry of fear, we very often transit dynamics, constant moving, a dark atmosphere, and absolutely uncertainty. It is impossible to predict what will happen now and when SRO bombers failures and a set ending, which has become a feature of the series. It caught on and attracted millions of fans around the world. That's why the first Outlast is still one of the most popular horror games. Even after 10 years, was large community is alive and playing this masterpiece to this day. But I did with the part is difficult to accept. It feels as if some arrogant investor invaded the company and forced it to withdraw everything what worked perfectly, giving instead a blank game what will please all players and which will be fashionable to play. And I don't care about the fans. We are moving towards innings, money, hairy attraction, a young audience which has all sorts of nerve and plasmaphobia, so the new Outlast should be like this. Removing all the originally and not like other games, replacing an interesting plot with stupid fanfiction, interesting characters with lifeless mannequins, and the spirit of horror and persecution with virgins and apathians. What happened? Previously, we had a strong horror of the old school, the most cinematic and brutal. Every couple of minutes, liters of blood gushed out of nowhere, and the plot constantly threw up surprised, and it was very interesting to follow it. Now forget it. All these long 6 years we have been making a dull multiplayer grind for buzzers. The level of grandfather by daily and floppy time, even the style and mechanics are very similar. You don't even need to look closely. The developers absolutely didn't care about the project, so in 6 years we gave as much as 4 hours of play. The rest of course can be caught up in multiplayer, but it's a boring path. But after a few games you won't see anything new, and the game will finally turn into a routine. The question is, what have you been doing for 6 years? Topping on optimized graphics, what will require a computer for $1,500, or maybe an interesting plot in online about mega evil corporations that carried our government orders in the Cold War. And what about the enemies? They all seem to have been stolen from other games. I didn't see any memorable monsters. They are so pathetic, and as if realizing this, they almost don't get in your way. The old ones were disappointed in memory, and the local ones will disappear along with the plot from you at the next day. You can run through the whole game, even meet monsters a couple of times. They have become some kind of passive and more in the farm for an obstacle like a road sign and not a real threat to be afraid of. What's with the gameplay? As usual, we squad through the whole game collecting items and scrapping monsters, but was just before there was a production, a lot of scenes what surprised and very stored in memory for a long time, and now we entered ourselves. The new trick of the game is to create traps like in DVD, from where this chip was spied. This is the only innovation in 6 years which if you don't use, nothing will change, and then what was that 6 years have passed, why would we not add to taste something new, original, and not tell from very no. Let's better remove everything what's already working perfectly and make a copy of other popular games. After all, they sell cool and attract a lot of attention, but what else is needed? That shows monsters. Previously, all the monsters in the Outlast very memorable and etched into the memory, and meeting them would lead to death with the toilet. Like the plot, he was very brave and didn't hesitate to shout talk content every couple of minutes. Now all the brutality has been cut out, so what the game can be sold to school children and teenagers with a clear consistency. Instead of gloomy and drown our story, we got a stamp what was reshaped from the time to time. So very a lot of illogical and stupid plot holes in the game, what is no expense to us. We all figured it out yourself, the creator says. After passing the game, I don't have a feeling what it's over. As if you were watching a movie which was cut off in the middle. Many story arcs about the formation of maniacs were very realistic and remained unsolved. Практически. Чуть-чуть осталось. And not brought to the final. You will bring yourself in your mind, the developers say. And the funny thing is what the game has an upper ending, and there are only 2 of them. Yes, this is 2 more fun in some FNAF, but still not FNAF. We have a bad ending and worse one, very cool, right? That's it. What you passed, what you didn't pass. Most of the story will pass you by. As usual, it will be sketched in small length notes what no one ever reads. Why not tell important plot events what tell about what is happening here and show them to us? I can read them myself. I go to the church, trained not to develop. Where did the production go? There's strong linear horror where scripts and events are all around, which creators think but everything is alive and natural here. We got into some kind of empty, lifeless walker where nothing happens, where there are only a couple of cutscenes for the whole game, and we are afraid to enter ourselves. The whole atmosphere has evaporated somewhere. I love Outlast first of all for the oppressive atmosphere, adrenaline, and a constant sense of decisions. There is not even close to this. During the game, you will only see screamers and scary moments a couple of times. They do not try to scare you. Very are so unexpected and ridiculous, as if they very added for show and just to be like everything what is scary. Blood jump instinct or drive. Very are not trying to scare or turn you. The developers want to allow you to sleep with bedroom and blunt moments, which we have seen thousands of times in other games. What made a cool atmosphere before, the games had a great soundtrack which adjusted to what was happening on the screen. The game took place at night or in the evening and had a small radius of driving. You very blank, your nose is dark and very constantly afraid of bumping into something scary. Harry, for some reason, everything was ruined and lamps very added anywhere which show what is scary incompletely kills all the fear. When you don't see a place and objects, your brain draws up your fears or for you, but there is no such thing. Harry. Ghost's music. There is particularly no music here, and the question is why. Didn't you have enough money to record the soundtrack? The whole game is played by a barely audible static ambient. It is absolutely empty and inspired, and instead of fear, it creates a feeling of impotence and boredom. Not some kind of atmospheric injection. I don't try to surprise you here, but you in the right framework. Here you can run around the opening the whole game and slap into the ventilation when he tries to grab you. Previously, the main character was always weak and died from one or two blows, because of which it was necessary to constantly hide and run away and bypass even weak opponents for a kilometer. Erwin have not a hero but some kind of Terminator which withstands a series of blows and continues to run. Actually, for some reason, here you have become much faster than in the previous games because of what to run EV is not a problem. Very will be not such thing as in the previous parts when you want to run away, but because of the darkness you don't know where everything is visible here, which is why there is not excitement and anything turns into some kind of fan-fiction parody of yourself. Very casual, only on the for the puzzles to pass without problems, and the old fans don't care. The difficulty levels are generally for show, which is the easiest play level, which is the most difficult. The game is quality simple and easily fast without death or difficult moments, but all of the above called by Skipted with the new Outlast Trials, passionate with the plot of characters, story and unexpected developments. This is the main thing what the previous parts are all about. If I managed to lose everything here, the plot ends after the introductionary screensaver at first. They are giving a seat where is nothing much to explain here. Is the USA of the 50s, bad guys from the government are conducting experiments to make it easier to fight the communists. Behind these experiments is the one familiar evil corporation Mirkov from the first two parts. At some point, the world have put everything went wrong, and the most dangerous test subjects broke free. How original, we haven't seen this anywhere. And the main character, an ordinary worker, in the end very will be unusual one who accidentally got very and now has to survive. It's intriguing, but after an hour the game through you with stupid hide and seek and self-repetition, and the plot does not develop. It seems to have been cut off at the very beginning. Agree. It even sounds secondary. In the first part, a superhuman soldier, invisible and strong, was created in our mental hospital. In the second, the brains of the residents were burnt out, which is why we staged religious battles believing in artificial end of the world. And again, is their background a story about some experiments to win the war. Overlook every first sluggish. The game lacks unexpected twist. After all, in 4 hours they will not show us why the experiment failed. We will probably find out about it in the 10 years in the fourth part of Outlast. Thank you very much. But there is a good thing in the game. In principle, the setting itself is quite interesting and rare in games. It gives off some kind of circus clown vibe. It almost never occurs in games. There is a lot of dull stuff here and it creates this a creepy effect. We would also have worked with music and made more darkness and dark rooms. The game would have been more scary. But all seriousness has evaporated. The spirit of the game is similar to Bendy of the recent FNAF. It seeks cloning and continuous to replace the realism and gloom, but you made up the past games. And from the good, you can highlight good optimization on all platforms, which is now an incredible rarity in games. Now surprised I was when I launched the 2023 game and it just turned on and worked. You don't have strong downdowns up to 5 frames, no monsters and the walls, and I'm already so used to it with modern games. I'm even a little disenchanted. Someone will tell me take it easy, it's just early access. Yes, the fact is what the game is almost ready, just a couple of new enemy mobs and items will be added to the release. The main skeleton and the plot of the game is ready and no one will redo it. I don't know of cases when the game is very different from the beta version to the release. Very far at the release everything will be waiting for you the same. It's a shame, but my favorite series of games has been reduced to be regular DVD clone, of which there are millions now. This game was unique and it had not analogies. Now it has become on the rails of multiplayer entertainments for the masses and not a serious single adventure. You can go through the whole game with your friends and it's scary fun. Even passing alone opponents and artificial intelligence project every other time will be godlessly stupid and see you point blank passing by, but together with friends you will be elusive. You will pass everything in a couple of hours and after the first level you will feel bored. After all, this game has big problems with balance. Even playing together, you can constantly cheat and deceive opponents. No one can get to it. And when what's the point if everything is so simple and you can get stuck anywhere? In this part, your hands are united. You are not longer weak and vulnerable. It's not you who are locked in a cage with dangerous maniac, but on the contrary, you twist as you want, not you twist. Conclusion: I'm really sorry. I hope this game is just an experiment, and the next part we will go back to the basics, considering what no one was waiting for the game, and fans very afraid of top and multiplayer, and if good reason, I hope but it will be delayed for a long time and will be supported. I have never been a forecaster, but in mode we already have empty series here for if you want to have fun with your friends in the dollhouse setting now in the best time. This game has a normal price tag and it will easily give you a couple of fun evenings of non-stressful play, and most of them don't need it anymore now. Fans of the first part by Unless You Can Cry How Our Favorite Game was defied. After all, why bet on ordinary players in 2023? They will bring a little money, let's better release. All the game tried to multiplayer and I don't care. All this multiplayer breaks the whole concept of survival alone in the middle of insane maniacs. What can I say? These are the traits now to make not game but crooked products. I don't like this kind of thing, and I think what games should be released for ordinary single player. If you want multiplayer, make a good balance because it's so boring to play the game alone and it's not too easy in the company and it's not particularly normal.